Businessman. Some people like to have it floating.
No, it shouldn't be floating.
We have Dania.
Some fresh rosemary off the twig, off the sprig. Right front, I won't brag, but
I'm the head of TV of the KISS TV that aired the show, and we had several meetings until we finalized, came up with an agreement to air the show.
And it's gone through 2 seasons, correct?
Yes.
Screened in Kenya.
Yes.
Any interest to pick it up internationally and take it to the next level?
Yes, it has now been picked up by MNet. So it will, one season will be airing on MNet starting anytime once we sign the contract, which should be happening now at DISCOP. I also have an inquiry to shoot a South African version of the show. And I'm really happy because the main objective of the show was actually to have the show made in different countries. So you have Dads Can Cook Kenya, now Dads Can Cook South Africa, Dads Can Cook Nigeria, and so on and so forth.
Which is, of course, the thrust of creating a format that can work per market, which is
Yes.
what we are learning. So Martin, sorry, for those of us who don't live in Kenya and we haven't seen your
Yes.
show on air, just frame it for us and just tell us what time did it go on air, what day was
Yeah.
it on, and why that selection was made by channel.
Yeah. It got a very good slot. It went on air Sunday at 8:10 p.m., which was it's prime time, family time in Kenya. And what was showing concurrently in the other stations were mostly comedy, stand-up comedy and comedy shows. So what was good about it was the only cooking show going on at that hour, and it had quite a following because we also had a Twitter, we opened a Twitter, Facebook, all the social media basically channels.
Now that I want to ask you about in a moment.
Yes.
But what we didn't see in the reel is the title Dads Can Cook. The dads were cooking. Did we meet the children? Did the children taste? Were they involved at all?
Not really. What happens is the caliber of dads coming were also pretty high profile. And what happens and what we came to realize, the dads wanted their family kept private as much as possible. They really didn't want the audience to know what the kids look like for obvious security reasons, and they would talk about them. We'd have the pictures because there's a section in the show where the first 5 minutes of the show, the dad talks about himself, his career, his family, and we have footage where we were allowed access to follow the dads, or they would come and give us pictures. So they would talk about their family, talk about the number of kids they have, what they do together as a family, and so on and so forth. But the timings was such the kids hardly came to the studio.
Okay. And talk to us about your personal journey of how you've grown and what you got out of the process from last year to where you find yourself now, career-wise, and doors that have opened.
Yes. Definitely with a show like this comes a lot of publicity in some form or the other. Already by winning DISCOP, there were articles in the papers back home, which was good. The dads themselves, being the famous people they are, have
So it's
had their
celebrity
own
dads. It's always a celebrity dad, whether it's a sportman or a
Yes.
business person.
Correct.
Or
Correct.
okay, always a well-known face.
Always a well-known dad who also had their own following on Twitter or Facebook. So they would also tweet during the show or before the show. So social media kind of helped build the numbers and the viewership. The main thing that I noticed was there was some sort of pride from the fathers that I could cook. And then you'd have, let's take for example, a dad who's cooked and a dad's cooked 4 weeks after a friend dad of his has cooked, and they would start tweeting like, my dish was better,
So competitions.
There was sort of some competition
Classic
on
male
social media.
testosterone, huh? Had got to be competition.
Yeah, but mostly it was also people who know the dads who did not know them in anything beyond the suit and the tie. So it was very interesting because sometimes you wouldn't expect dads of that caliber and the heavy work lifestyle they had to actually do a meal that requires 2 hours cooking.
Yes.
But one thing, they really seem to enjoy the cooking. Let me just tell you a story that happened. I was really impressed, and it really touched me last time I was in competition. And I think one of the guys was also in competition from Nigeria. So the following day he came to the stand and he met me there. He came and he said, "I've come personally to congratulate you." And I was really touched. I said, "Yeah, thank you." And he says, "I've called home and I've told them to prepare the kitchen. When I land, my son is coming to cook with me." So I was like, "Oh, great. So you actually cook?" He says, "No, never." But he was so impressed by the whole idea of the show. So he said he's starting off. And I also saw some back in Kenya, there are some men who are also they were converted, because now you'd see them post pictures of what they've cooked on Facebook. And
Where's
my
the
first
book?
attempt.
When are you making a book? I think maybe for the next series you need to take lots of stills and create the book, Dad's Recipes.
Yes, we do have. You see, a show like this has a potential to grow into so many other shows. You could now start segmenting and call them celebrity dads, engineer dads, doctor dads. Then you can have dads who bake, dads who make dessert. So you can, there's a lot of things you can play with the whole dad.
Did you give them a framework, as in you have to do a 3-course meal or a main,
No,
starter or a dessert, or was there a...
No, for the first, being a new show and something new of this within its category, I didn't want to put a lot of conditions on what they can do. So it was open. Just come and cook your meal. You could bake, cook, whatever. The only thing we could not do was open fire, braai.
Okay.
Yeah,
Why
because
is that?
we were shooting in a studio. We didn't have ventilation systems and all that organized. But if we were to go into...
take the cameras outside and do something outside?
The idea was actually, I was waiting to start that on season 3, where I would have a set outside. You see, the whole thing with the format show is also the set design and the branding and everything. There has to be some sort of consistency. So whether you're doing in the kitchen cooking or outside in the braai, there has to be some sort of consistency. So that was the plan for season 3, because several dads asked, "Can I roast?" I'm just good at roasting. But I think roasting is the easiest thing to do. I mean, it's Sunday, you've got the fire, and you just throw in the meat. It sort of cooks itself.